have your feelings about, are we still in a decadent moment, or have we moved into a more apocalyptic moment?
I mean, we're obviously in a moment of crisis. And the question is that crisis just sort of exposing our decadence more profoundly than normalcy did? Or is it some opening into a period of greater transformation or greater catastrophe, right? And I think, the boring answer is that it's too soon to tell. But I think certainly, I spend the middle part of the book, as you say, talking about why decadence can actually go on longer than people sometimes think, right? All the ways that it turns out to be sustainable. But of course, some of the things that make it sustainable, like, virtual entertainments at your fingertips, sort of institutions that keep functioning, even if they don't function very well. A lot of those things have gone away. Netflix hasn't gone away, but in another 6 months, we're going to start to run out of Netflix shows. And you can see, I think, in our society right now, what happens when some of the automatic stabilizers of a decadent society stop being there. And what's exposed is obviously sort of political incompetence, also sort of, elements of social disarray, sort of long simmering problems like police brutality suddenly become bigger issues because people have, in certain ways, more time on their hands to act, to protest, and also, fewer reasons to just sort of go on every day with the status quo. So what that means is that in certain ways, a moment like this is kind of an opportunity, right? Like I spend part of the book talking about how, in the age of the internet, sort of protest politics has actually declined, right? And that sort of lots of effective political movements don't exist anymore because people are just liking posts on Facebook or Twitter instead. And obviously we do suddenly have a political movement that's actually in the streets, right? And we do have sort of a revolutionary feeling in the air. And you also have people sort of, I think, looking harder at all of the defects in our sort of sclerotic systems, all the reasons why the CDC and the FDA and, local and national governments can't seem to get their act together to deal with the pandemic. And you have people sort of imagining reforms in ways that weren't necessarily being imagined before this came along. So if you wanted an optimistic vision in the midst of all of this, human suffering and incredible challenges to the developed world, you would say that, this is a moment that sort of throws our decadence into relief, but also offers reasons to think anew about how we might get out of it. But then you could also be pessimistic and say, if you look at decadent societies, right, like if you look at, say, the Roman Empire in the last 3 centuries of its existence, crises like this one come along. The Roman Empire had lots of pandemics, and often they come along and they create a crisis, the crisis passes, and then sort of decadence intensifies, right? And that's, I think, also a possibility for the future.